Heat, Chapter 17, page 116. Michael watched as Manny actually began to talk Carlos into it, it being his big idea that his Uncle Timo, who had gotten some small parts in an off-Broadway play and even some of the television shows shot in New York, could play the part of Poppy just for one day. They were in the living room. Michael had called Manny as soon as Mr. Gibbs had left, told Manny what he had told Mr. Gibbs about his father coming back the day after tomorrow. He had also told Manny to get his butt over to 825 Gerard before Carlos got home from the Imperial. "Why do you need me?" Manny said. "As moral support," Michael said. "As a human shield," Manny said, and then told Michael he'd be right over. Michael expected Carlos to yell when he told him about Mr. Gibbs, but he didn't yell or walk out of the room. He just sat there on the couch, still in his imperial white shirt and tie, and listened to Manny, as if Manny were now the only one in charge here. "This can work," Manny said. "I told you," Carlos said. "I'm listening." "We can make sure Uncle Timo's English is a lot worse than your father's really was," Manny said. "That way he can act confused if he has to. Then all he has to do is to keep thanking Mr. Gibbs for being this interested in his boys. Tell him he's working day and night to get that stinking birth certificate, and that hopefully he'll see us all at the Little League World Series." Manny stood up, bowed at the waist, then said, "You've been a great audience. Don't forget to tip the waiters." Michael had no idea what that one meant. He just laughed along with Carlos, who did seem to understand. Michael did this a lot. Laughed at something Manny said, even if Manny seemed to be saying it in some kind of foreign language. Carlos said, "You're good, Manuel, and I'm sure your uncle is, but what if he makes a slip?" "Let me ask you a question," Manny said. "What have we got to lose?" This Mr. Gibbs was sure your father had just deserted you guys, which means he's going to keep coming around like the truant officer unless we do something. "I'm not saying we're just going to sit around and do nothing," Carlos said. "I'm just asking what happens if I agree to go along with your crazy plan and Uncle Timo makes a slip." "He won't." "How do you know that?" "Because I know my uncle," Manny said. "My mother says he could sell sand in the desert." "How would he would do this, your uncle?" "He's my godfather," Manny said. "He knows I look up to him, even though he's not close to being a star, because I think maybe I'd like to be an actor someday. If I ask him, yeah, I think he'll do it." Carlos went into the kitchen, came back with a Coke, and sat down, now in Poppy's old recliner, the tape on the arm and the cushion. "This is crazy," Carlos said. "Our whole life is crazy," Michael said. "I'm telling you, this'll work," Manny said. "You and Michael can tell him everything he needs to know, and he can memorize it." Michael saw that look over his friend's face again, his big idea look. "We can even have one of those mock debates like we do in class before a real debate, and you can pretend you're Mr. Gibbs and fire questions at him." Carlos looked at Michael, then Manny, then back to Michael. "I can't believe I'm letting you two knotheads talk me into this," he said. "Working two jobs must be making me way too tired." "I promise, this is going to be great," Manny said. Michael thought, "Manny Cabrera is the one who could sell sand in the desert. We just need to give him something so he stops coming around, until you figure out a way to get that stupid birth certificate, Carlos." "I called Father Morales," Carlos said, "our old pastor. He was on vacation, but the priest who answered said he'd give him the message as soon as he got back. So for now, we work on Uncle Timo." Carlos smiled and said to Michael, "Al pan pan y al vino vino." "Hey," Manny said, "no keeping secrets." "You never heard that one," Carlos said. "All I got was the wine part," Manny said. Michael said, "It's a Cuban expression about bread and wine, but it's really about calling things as they are. No lies." "Until the next lie," Carlos said. "You guys call bread and wine whatever you want," Manny said. "I'm going to call Uncle Timo." "You're actually going to let us do this?" Michael said to Carlos before his brother went off to work at Hector's. As always, his brother was wearing his favorite baseball cap, the one with the W on the front, which Michael knew was for the old Washington Senators, even if the new Nationals team was using a W on its cap now. Poppy loved the Senators when he was a boy, even though they were usually terrible, because their star pitcher was Camilo Pascual, a Cuban by birth. I am thinking about letting you do this, Carlos said, checking himself in the mirror, making sure the cap was just so. Just because a few minutes with this Uncle Timo guy might get Mr. Gibbs off our back. He pointed a finger at Michael, then Manny, then back to Michael. But remember, you two. Meet him tomorrow, Michael said. I'm just going to tell him stuff about Poppy's life. Tell him some baseball things about the two of us, and Manny thinks we should show him some pictures of all of us. And don't forget to show him some of the Cuban expressions I wrote up, Carlos said. Do you think Mr. Gibbs will know the difference? Manny said. Aquí ha gato encerrado, Carlos said to Manny. Say what? He's saying there's a caged cat here, Michael said. The cat is me. I just want to make sure the cat has 9 lives, Carlos said. I got a smile out of Michael. Not easy these days. How many lives do I have left? He said to his brother. That's what we're trying to figure out, Miguel, his brother said, and left for work. Uncle Timo showed up about an hour later, wearing a short-sleeved shirt, outside his jeans, sandals, no socks. He was still wearing his sunglasses even though the sun was gone from the sky, and wearing the kind of backpack Michael and Manny took to school with them. He looked old enough to be a dad to teenage boys, Michael thought. He even had a beard that reminded Michael a little bit of the neat trimmed beard Poppy always had. Uncle Timo was carrying a plastic bottle of water. Dude, he said to Manny when he came through the door, giving Manny a big hug. Now you think you've turned into my agent? Michael's heart fell now, hard, as if he'd dropped it from place. Uncle Timo sounded more American than baseball announcers. And you? He said, rubbing Michael's head. Must be the famous Mike. He stepped back and put out his hand. Give me some, he said. Michael gave him 5, but without too much enthusiasm. Uncle Timos noticed it, because he dropped his head to the side and gave Michael a funny look. Where's the love, dude? Don't worry, man, he said, reading Michael's mind as usual. He grows on you. Uncle Timo dropped his backpack on the floor and popped himself down into Poppy's old recliner chair. My nephew here gave me the setup, he said. And by the way, dude, I'm sorry about your pop. Thank you, Michael said, thinking to himself. He's more of a teenager than Carlos is. Manny laid out the plot for me, Uncle Timo said. I'm Dad. I've been down in Florida. I'm back for a day just to check on my boys. Then I'm back down there with my ailing brother. Ailing, Michael said. Sick, Manny said, then grinned and said, Hey, dude, what if Mr. Gibbs asks where your brother is? Got it covered, Uncle Timo said. I got a girl down there. Her own place is in Homestead, working a diner theater down there. He calls that number. She's the maid. Not so good. Habla Inglese. Michael closed his eyes. Besides, Uncle Timo said, Manny said we've got to do is convince the man. He made little quotation marks with his fingers around the last 2 words, that I'm the man of the house, and that I trust you guys to keep things under control till I get back. Manny said, Sounds like a plan. Manny says, the guy thinks your dad turned deadbeat and ran out on you. Michael looked at Manny. He knows the whole story, Manny said. You can't tell, Michael said to Uncle Timo. Dude, Uncle Timo said, sounding hurt. Michael noticed that every time Uncle Timo said dude, he sounded more like Manny or Cal, even more like a kid. Seriously, he said to Michael, don't worry. I don't spill my guts unless I get paid to do it on a cop show. Michael said, the one you have to fool, Mr. Gibbs, he's very smart, so you've got to be good. I am good, he said. My agent tells me all the time. Michael wasn't so sure. Uncle Timo was a goof, but at least he was trying. What do you want to know about my father? Michael said. First, I want to see him, Uncle Timo said. Manny said you've got pictures? But I don't understand why you need them, Michael said. Because if I'm going to be him, I need to know what he looks like. But you don't look anything like him, except for maybe your beard. I don't look like him yet, Uncle Timo said. Yet. That happens, he said, when the magic happens, kid. Michael went into his room, reached up to the shelf in his closet, got down on the shoebox with some of Poppy's stuff in it. The small stack of photographs that the nice woman, a stranger, had offered to take at the Bronx Zoo that time. Poppy's cigar cutter, the old black and white team photograph and the Cuban national team, with Poppy standing next to a smiling, happy fat boy at the end, one who didn't look much older than Michael was now. Poppy said the boy had snuck into the clubhouse that morning, just wanting to see some of his heroes. The manager on the team wanted to throw him out, but Poppy had liked the spunk it had taken to sneak in there. Then he proclaimed the kid Bat Boy for a day. He told Michael every time he retold the story and had gotten him into the team picture. There was the photo of Michael and Poppy posing outside Yankee Stadium, next to the huge bat that rose like a skyscraper. There was a picture of Poppy standing proudly next to his Grand Prix. Finally, there was the photograph that was Michael's favorite, from the spring, not so long before Poppy had had his heart attack. Michael in his Mandel Monument uniform, Poppy with his arm around him, both of them smiling. Michael remembered Poppy telling him that day that now he really was an official American boy. He was in the Little League. Only now he wasn't in Little League. Michael brought the box into the living room, set it on the glass coffee table, took out the Little League picture and showed that one to Uncle Timo first. He carefully took the photograph out of Michael's hand, stared at it hard, walked over to the window that looked out on Girard Avenue, still staring at the picture, as if frozen in that position. Michael whispered to Manny, "It's like he's in a trance." "He's starting to get into character," Manny said. "It's an actor thing." "Oh. Remember that scene on Caddyshack?" Manny said, referring to another one of his favorite movies of all times. "It's like when the guy tells himself, 'Be the ball.' So he's trying to be the photograph," Michael said. "Something like that," Manny said. "He's cool, isn't he?" Michael didn't answer because he was thinking weird is more like it. This was never going to work in a million years.